Which is the best form of payment to use? Credit cards, debit cards, cash? Well, in this video, I'm gonna go over all three options. I'll give you the pros and cons, and then I'll give you my personal strategy. Before we get started, let me know down in the comments below, what is your favorite form of payment? I'll let you know mine later on in the video. Also, quick survey here, 40% of people choose credit cards, 35% choose debit cards, and 11% choose cash. First, let's start with credit cards. I'll go over the pros first. First pro is that you could easily track your spending. Anytime you swipe your credit card, you can see exactly how much you spent, where you spent it, and the exact date. Next, credit cards help your credit score. Every time you use your credit card responsibly and you pay it back in full every single month, your credit score actually rises. And with a good credit score, then you could actually get a better rate on a mortgage or a car, any other big purchases. Also, some jobs these days actually check your credit score. So credit score is really important, assuming you are using your credit cards responsibly. And the next pro is protection. So if you have a credit card and it gets hacked or stolen and there's fraudulent charges on your account, you just let the credit card company know, and it is the credit card company's loss, not yours. They will cover the bill and you don't have to pay anything. In extreme cases, if there's an excessive amount of fraudulent charges, sometimes you may have to pay $50, but that's if there's thousands and thousands of dollars of charges. Next is rewards. A lot of credit cards offer you cash back, or you could earn airline miles or hotel points. Those type of rewards you can't get with anything else, and those rewards could give you tons of free travel. So personally, over the past 10 years, I've been using credit cards to get a lot of free travel around the world. I've been able to take my family on first class, business class trips to Fiji, Bali, Australia, Hawaii, and we've done that all thanks to credit card miles and points. So when it comes to credit card rewards, that's something I'm really passionate about. I actually have another channel called Wise Flies, which is all about credit cards and travel points. So that is probably my favorite pro of credit cards, is that you get reward points. Also, in addition to reward points, you get other benefits such as car rental insurance. So if you rent a car and use your credit card, if there's any accident with the car, your credit card will actually cover that, and you don't have to pay for any rental car insurance at the rental car agency, as well as trip cancellation insurance. If you use your credit card to book a trip and the flights are canceled or there's a long delay, then the credit card company will actually reimburse you. So now let's talk about the cons of credit cards, and I'll point out the obvious one first, is that you could get into debt. If you don't use credit cards responsibly, then you could wind up in a massive amount of debt. Anytime you use a credit card, ideally you want to treat it like a debit card and have it automatically be paid at the end of the month in full every single month. Carrying a balance is not the best thing to do with a credit card. And I believe that there are many people who should not have credit cards at all, especially people who do impulsive spending, because that's when people get into trouble and get into debt, because they buy things they don't need to impress people who don't care with money they don't have. By the way, my name is David, and if you're getting any value out of this video so far, hit the like button down below and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this that will give you wise money tips. And the next con to credit cards is that some credit cards have annual fees. So a lot of people think that you have to pay an annual fee just to have a certain credit card, but that's not true. Almost every credit card that has an annual fee has an option that you could downgrade to that does not have an annual fee. So if you have miles or points on your credit card and you think the only way to keep those miles and points from staying alive and not expiring is by paying an annual fee, then you just call the number on the back of your credit card and say that you want to downgrade your card to a card with no annual fee and keep all your miles and points. And although annual fees are a con to credit cards, majority of credit cards do not have annual fees. Next, let's move on to debit cards, and the first pro to debit cards, just like credit cards, you could track your spending. Very similar to credit cards, you could just look in your online statement or paper statement and see exactly how much you spent, where you spent it, and what was the date. Another pro for debit cards is that you could easily access cash, even though an ATM may not be in your network, but there's pretty much ATMs anywhere. So if you have your debit card on you and you need cash in a pinch, you could just go to the ATM and get cash. Another pro to debit cards is no debt. So you could only spend a certain amount of money that you have in your bank account with a debit card. You can't spend more. This way you won't wind up in debt. Anyone can get a debit card. If you have a bank account with a bank, most likely they'll just give you a free debit card. It's not like a credit card where you need a certain credit score. If you have a bank account, you pretty much have access to a debit card. Next, let's go into the cons of debit cards. First con is you don't get any reward. So unlike credit cards, when you use a debit card, you're not going to get any cash back, any miles, any points. A long time ago, there used to be debit cards that would give you miles, and technically there still are some now, but if you spend $1, you maybe get a quarter of a point or a mile. Next con is limited protection. So if you use a debit card and it gets hacked or stolen and there's fraudulent charges, it's a little harder to deal with because you're dealing with real money here from the bank, from your bank account, compared to a credit card. So it's a much bigger headache to take care of when you have any fraudulent charges on a debit card. Also, someone who has access to your debit card and somehow gets your PIN, they could siphon your bank account. That's probably one of the worst things about using a debit card on a regular basis is that if someone gets that information, they could wipe out an entire bank account. One solution to this, I think, is if you have a buffer debit card or a buffer bank account. So you have your main bank account, your main checking account, which could have hundreds or thousands of dollars in it. But if you want to make purchases at the grocery store or wherever and you want to do that on a debit card, I recommend having a different account for that you could put in a few $100s in every week, and then if it gets hacked or stolen, they won't have access to your main account. Debit cards have no effect on your credit score. So it doesn't matter how many times you swipe, you're not going to get a better score or lower score when using debit cards. Now let's get into the pros and cons of cash. The first pro of cash is that you won't wind up in debt. Whatever cash you have and you make purchases with, you're not going to spend more money than you have because that is the money you have that you're using for the transaction. Next pro is you get a discount. So when you use cash at certain businesses that don't want to report their income to the IRS, or they just don't want to pay any credit card transaction fees, if you use cash, you could actually get a lower price. So this could work at farmers markets or markets in general and a few different places. If you use cash, you could get a lower price. Now let's get into the cons of cash. When you use cash, there's no way to track your spending unless every time you make a purchase, you're writing it down, but most people don't. So that means that when you spend money, you may have $100 starting off for the week, and then by the end of the week, you have $6 and you have no idea where that money was spent, how it was spent, where, why, any of that. Next con is that cash doesn't help your credit score. Compared to a credit card, if you're gonna make the same purchase, using cash will not benefit your credit score at all. And obviously, there is no protection when using cash. If your cash is stolen or lost, it is gone forever. Nobody is going to reimburse you for any cash that was stolen or lost. Cash is not accepted everywhere. So if you want to rent a car, you can't do that with cash. If you want to buy a house, can't do that with cash. If you want to buy a car, you can if you pay in full in cash, but usually they want credit card, debit card, they're gonna check your credit score. Also, you're not getting any rewards when using cash, no airline miles, no hotel points, no cash back for using cash. Let me know down in the comments below if I missed any pros and cons between credit cards, debit cards, and cash. Now I'll give you my personal strategy and my favorite form of payment. So it may have seemed obvious if I have another YouTube channel on credit cards. My favorite form of payment is definitely credit card. I use credit card for every single purchase possible, and I get reward points and miles and all that good stuff in the process. Personally, I rarely ever use cash, maybe on a rare occasion if I go to a farmer's market or if there's one merchant that by any chance just does not accept credit cards, but nowadays almost everybody accepts credit cards. And when it comes to debit cards, I mainly use debit cards just to get money out of the ATM. I never make any purchases with a debit card. And probably my favorite debit card is the Schwab debit card. Basically, it has no ATM fees anywhere in the world. So wherever you are, you could use this debit card, get cash out of any ATM, it doesn't have to be in any network, and then Schwab Bank will actually reimburse you that ATM fee. And that's what I use, what I was saying earlier in the video, for a buffer account. So I have my main checking account, and if I'm going to need cash or I'm gonna have it on me at any time, I'll put a few $100s on that Charles Schwab debit card and then use that anytime I need cash. And that's just, I have on me just for insurance. And if your cash management skills are good enough and you feel like you won't get in trouble with credit cards, but your credit score isn't quite there yet, I recommend clicking this video right over here. I teach you how to get a credit score above 750, and I actually share my personal credit score of how I got mine over 750. So click that video right now, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you for watching.